everybody. Welcome to Pre-Calculus. This is our flipped version of Pre-Calculus. I am Mrs. Cofield.
I am Mr. Lecky.
And we will be your instructors for the year. Lucky you. So the format of this class is a flipped classroom, so you're going to be watching the videos, taking your own notes. Yes, bring your notes to class every day. And then you can always make a note to the side if you have a question. And remember to use your pause button.
Pause.
If you ever need to
like
stop.
Pause?
Not those pause.
Oh.
P-A-U-S-E, pause.
All right.
He thinks he's the funny one.
I'm not funny.
Okay, our first lesson today is P2. You can see your learning targets there, and Mr. Lecky, take it away.
And we're probably watching this with you, which is really kind of creepy. Okay, so every lesson you see, you're going to see learning targets on the page. They match the ones on the top of the page of your notes. So we're not going to spend much time reading them unless we just feel the urge.
However, you should read them.
Yes, and when you go to take quizzes and tests, guess what? Those learning targets are where those questions come from. So those are the things you really need to know how to do before you are done. All right, so first things first, distance formula. We can derive the distance formula directly from the Pythagorean theorem. In fact, we can do a lot of things with the Pythagorean theorem. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a right triangle by going over here and then up and making that a right triangle. Now, how far is it on this bottom side of the triangle?
Well, if we think about the x-coordinate, or the... If we think about the coordinate system, you want to count yourself back in? Sorry, we're going to screw it up. Just start that example over.
Example 1. Take 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, distance formula. Example 1 says the distance formula is derived directly from the Pythagorean theorem. What's the Pythagorean theorem?
A squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Okay, so let's take care of that first. And in order to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, what do I need?
Oh, that only works on a right triangle.
So I need a right triangle out of this line here. So I'm going to make one.
Okay. And Mr. Lecky, what does derive mean?
Figure out.
Figure
Prove.
out. Prove. Okay, so we're just doing it all with letters?
Doing it all with letters. Now,
Okay.
let's suppose we're on graph paper. How's that?
That's great.
Is that better?
So
we
I see
have
a point at x1, y1.
x1, y1 is here, and x2, y2 is here.
Okay.
So what is this distance from here to here if this is x1 and this is x2?
Oh, that distance would be x2 minus x1.
That's all it is. You just want to know how far two numbers are apart, you subtract them.
Okay, so we could do the same on the other side?
Same on the other side. y2 is up here, y1 is here. What is this distance right here?
It would be y2 minus y1.
y2 minus y1. So how do we use the Pythagorean theorem then to make this happen? Well,
We have all three sides of the triangle now.
A is now x2 minus x1.
Okay,
B is y2 minus y1. And C is just plain old D, our distance.
okay.
So we're going to write x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared equals D squared.
Great, but the directions say to solve for d.
So how do we solve for D?
Well, we have to undo a squared, so
Which
we're
is
going
a
to square root.
Square root both sides, and we end up with the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared is equal to our distance.
Hey, Mr. Lecky, is that the distance formula?
That is the distance formula.
That's beautiful.
You could also write this as the change in x squared plus the change in y squared inside your square root, if you so choose.
Okay, so the little triangle just means changing.
Change.
We're going to use that more than once this chapter.
A lot.
Okay,
Okay, next one. Hey, look, we have another segment.
okay.
But now we want to find the midpoint.
Midpoint.
How do we
Is
find the middle? Middle.
The middle
Again,
two numbers is the average.
take graph paper.
Okay.
If this is x1 and this is x2, how do we find the middle?
Well, we need to average them together, so let's add them and divide by 2.
We add them together and divide by 2, we get the midpoint on the x. So this point right here is going to have a coordinate x1 plus x2 divided by 2.
Now, you know if I was drawing that, you would tell me that it's not quite in the middle.
You're right.
Okay. We're going to
Comma.
pretend it's in the middle.
I'm going to pretend my board works well too, but right now it's not working so well. Where's the middle of the y's?
Y2 plus y1. y1 plus y2.
y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And there we go.
So that's just an ordered pair.
Just an ordered pair.
Perfect.
Average x, average y, we're done.
Got it. So let me see if I can try a problem.
Okay. You try, because the board just is getting worse by the minute.
Okay, I like to do the ones with the numbers. So let the endpoints of a segment, that's the same thing Mr. Lecky just had, be -2, 8, and 5, 7. So again, if you needed to, you could think of this as x1, y1, and x2, y2. And all we got to do is do the change in x and the change in y. So
So
we've
what we're
got
going to do
the
is plug this
square
into
root.
our formula for
Absolutely.
distance.
I don't really need to rewrite the formula, do I?
No, distance. Change in x,
Okay, 5 minus a negative 2.
which would really be 5 plus 2.
Yes, it would. Plus, and we're adding, because that's coming from the Pythagorean theorem. He's right, the board is terrible. There we go. I lost track. 7 minus 8 squared.
I can't handle this anymore. You want to reach for the board?
I don't care, that's fine. Do you want me to stop, undo?
Yeah, let's just I can't, like,
It's really bad, you're right.
it's
Hold on.
terrible, and it was fine when we started. Just stop. Erase it in a minute.
Fix.
I know, when we fix the board, you can actually push backspace.
Oh, that's right.
8-minute videos turning into 20 minutes long.
This is why we practice. Practice, practice, practice.
Practice makes perfect, and nobody's perfect, so why practice? Shut up.
In case you're wondering, it does not work when I use my finger. I've tried. I'm really bad at it.
Well, let's just start that problem over.
Just the problem, or you want to start the whole thing over?
Just do example 3 over.
Okay.
Pretend like you just got there. 1, 2, 3.
All right, so we're going to do the endpoints of a segment, just like what Mr. Lucky just had. And we've got -2, 8, and we've got 5, 7. So if you need to, you can go ahead and label this x1, y1, and x2, y2, like you did in Algebra 1. Okay, and we're going to find the length. Length is another word for
Distance.
distance. So the distance formula, remember, change in x. So if my second x value is at 5, we're just going to go 5 minus a -2.
Which is 5 plus 2.
Very good. And then there's always a plus in the middle because it's coming from the Pythagorean theorem. And then the y values would be 7 minus 8 squared.
Make sure that square root sign goes all the way across.
All the way across. And then it's just simple arithmetic.
Well, 5 plus 2 is 7, and 7 squared is 49.
Yes, it is. Please start to do some mental arithmetic.
7 minus 8 is -1, but when you square it, you get a positive 1. You will not get negative numbers when you square these things.
Never.
Please.
So we get the square root of 50. But if we're thinking about the square root of 50, we can actually simplify the square root of 50. And if we want to think about some perfect squares, how about 2 times 25?
So how about 5 square root of 2?
5 square root of 2 is our distance that is simplified. There's
All right.
no units given, so we don't have to put any units on our answer. Okay, so formulas as simple as that should be review for you. We want to point out, too, that just because this is called the prerequisites chapter, some of the things will be review, but a lot of things are just prior, not necessarily prior knowledge, but things you need to know for the rest of the semester and the rest of the year. So don't assume that you're going to know everything, but a lot of the stuff in chapter P2, you really will know. All right.
Most of it comes from geometry.
Find the midpoint. So this was our average of our x's. So we're going to take a -2 plus a 5, divide it by 2, and we're going to take an 8 plus a 7, average your y's, divided by 2. Little arithmetic.
We get 3 halves for the x
Okay.
and 15 halves for the y.
Notice we left those as a fraction. Why did we do that?
Because fractions are friends.
They are our friends, aren't they beautiful? Okay, another formula. More letters. Your turn.
Yay! All right. So, I really like the Pythagorean theorem for some reason. And we're going to talk about an equation of a circle. And again, if you remember it from geometry, great. If you don't, we can simply create an equation for the circle. If we consider our center of our circle to be h comma k,
Okay.
any point on our circle can be represented by x comma y.
Okay.
And we're going to create an equation to find all the x's and y's, knowing that the radius is r.
So again, Pythagorean theorem, we need a right triangle.
So we can make a right triangle just by simply doing this.
Okay? And if we follow what we did before, then don't we know the bottom of that right
The
triangle?
bottom of this right triangle then is x minus h long,
Okay.
and the top or the right side of this is y minus k.
I believe it's called the altitude.
Altitude, there we go. All right, so if we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem again, we're going to say that x minus h squared
That would be our a squared.
plus y minus k squared
That would be our b squared.
equals r squared.
Beautiful.
And unlike the distance formula, we don't have to solve for r, we just leave it.
That's it.
That's it. Our
Equation of a
center
circle.
is at h comma k,
Right, because that's where it was on our picture.
which means it'll always be the opposite of what those numbers are looking like in our problem.
Okay.
And our radius will simply be r but in our equation, the radius is squared.
So we're going to have to square root it to find our radius.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, you're up.
I'm up. Let's do some numbers. Okay, so we need to write the equation of a circle. Remember, an equation is going to have a couple of variables, usually x and y, with a radius of 4 whose center is at 0, 3. So radius is 4. That tells me r equals 4. Center is at 0, 3. You said this was h and k, correct? Yep. Okay, so all we got to do is take x minus our x value of our center, which was 0. And we're going to add again, squared, and we're going to add again because it's from the Pythagorean theorem. Y minus a negative 3, so I'm going to put a plus, equals the 4 squared. Now hopefully you can skip right to the simplified version, x squared plus y plus 3 squared, and we want to go ahead and square the 4, 16. So does that look like a great equation, Mr. Lecky?
We can leave it like that?
We can leave it just like that.
The only reason we simplified the first parentheses was it was x minus 0 then.
Correct. That's correct.
Perfect.
So the 0 went away, and you always want to simplify that radius right there.
All right.
The radius squared, rather. Okay, so one more thing we can do with our circle. What if they gave us the equation of a circle? We need to work a little backwards. So again, Mr. Lecky mentioned a second ago, it's going to be the opposite of the x number and the opposite of the y number to get the center.
So my center's at -1.
I don't write as fast as he does.
And
-1.
+4.
And +4. Remember, that's an ordered pair. And then the radius would be?
The square root of 9, which would just be 3.
Very good. So if we're going to create a graph for this, we're going to start at the logical place to start, the center, right? So we're going to left 1 up 4, easy enough. When the board's aligned. There we go. And we need a radius of 3 this time. So,
Why don't we go 3 up, 3 down, 3 left, 3 right, and try our best to connect the dots.
That sounds beautiful. I should make you draw the circle.
I can draw a circle.
I can't even draw the dots.
Here, I'll draw a circle. Watch
You draw
this.
the circle. He's going to do the circle tool.
I'm going to cheat and draw my circle.
Our circle.
My circle. Oops.
Ooh, a little too big.
Oh, that was in the wrong place. They changed it on me.
Hey, that's a pretty good circle.
Beautiful.
And when in doubt, you can always go like this and go 3. So they know exactly how big that radius is. So just go up, down, left, right, and try to sketch in your circle. So we've covered distance formula, midpoint,
circles,
and they all come from
geometry,
which is
Pythagorean theorem.
There we go. So, welcome to P2.
See you in class. Actually, we're probably in class right now, but see you later.
Have a great day.